15 years of silence broken. Police dog discovers incredible truth about a father's hidden violence. Jake Miller stood in the glow of the setting sun, a smile plastered on his face. For 15 years, he had been the perfect dad and husband in the quiet suburb of Maplewood, USA. His children idolized him, Noah, with bright eyes full of wonder, and little Lily, whose laughter echoed like sweet music in their tidy backyard. But beneath the surface of family barbecues, school fundraisers, and community potlucks, Jake carried a haunting secret, one that threatened to unravel everything in an instant. As an Iraq War veteran, Jake had fought for his country, but the true battle was raging within him. A lineage of hidden violence clung to his past like a dark shadow. He worked hard in the factory by day, preaching the values of love and unity at home, but all the while, he struggled with the horrors of his past. Jake thought he could suppress those shadows behind his warm smile, but they were always there, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. It was a Saturday afternoon when Noah made a new friend, Mark, the local police dog trainer. The boy's excitement was infectious, and Max, the golden retriever, mirrored that joy with every wag of his tail. As Jake watched the two bond, a tightness settled in his chest, and for a fleeting moment, he felt hope bloom within him, like a flower pushing through cracks in concrete. But unbeknownst to him, Max's instinct was as sharp as his nose. The dog sensed both the love and the fear swirling in the Miller household. Then it happened, the fateful day that would change everything. During an innocent game of fetch, Max darted into the bushes of their backyard, only to return, unearthed, with a broken object dragging behind him. In shock, Jake froze. He recognized it instantly, a remnant from a violent confrontation that he had tried desperately to forget. Noah, oblivious to the tremors that swept through his father, picked it up with curiosity, his small fingers clutching the jagged piece of metal. Maybe it was the soldier in Jake that triggered alarms, but when he saw what Noah was holding, panic set in like a frigid winter wind. Jake's heart raced as he tried to push the memory away, but Noah's innocent words shattered his carefully built facade. "Dad, what's this?" Before Jake could grab the boy and spin him away from the nightmare, Noah's excitement turned into concern. In a rush of words mixed with innocence and confusion, he relayed the truth to Sarah, whose face turned pale. The revelation rippled through the community like wind on water, angering neighbors who had once admired Jake. As the news spread, neighbors rallied around Sarah, their expressions a jumble of disbelief, loyalty, and sympathy. Friends whispered and cast worried glances, grappling with conflicting feelings about their once heroic neighbor. The truth was like a fire. It ignited conversations that echoed through the streets of Maplewood, leaving scars on the fabric of their tight-knit community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came the confrontation, electric with raw tension. Sarah found herself at a crossroads between love and the truth, and Jake stood trapped between his past and the man he had pretended to be. The house once filled with laughter grew heavy with silence, the air thick with the weight of a decision looming like storm clouds. As Jake faced his neighbors, anger and disappointment pierced his heart. A feeling he hadn't faced since the war gripped him, a fear that he could lose everything. Would he seek redemption or let the cycle of violence continue, entrapping his family in a legacy he swore he'd never repeat? The community, once a fortress of support, felt more like a noose tightening around him. But as the tension escalated, Jake looked deep within, about to make a choice that could redefine their lives forever. The haunting silence that filled their home felt like a ticking clock, counting down to an inevitable explosion. The silence in the Miller household stretched long, a weighted cloak draped over them. Jake felt the suffocation of it, each breath becoming heavier. His children, normally so full of life and laughter, moved through the house like shadows. They were afraid, unsure of what this new revelation meant for their family. Sarah's reaction was still raw, her eyes darting between Jake and the door as if expecting anyone to come in and sweep her away from this nightmare. Sarah's voice trembled, breaking the stillness. What on earth happened? He wanted to explain, but the words caught in his throat. Every moment from that day loomed like a specter, replaying in his mind. The whispers of neighbors reverberated, the looks of disappointment and anger creeping further into his reality. Please, Sarah urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Just tell me the truth. Jake turned, searching her face for a hint of the woman he'd married, a glimpse of the love they'd once shared. But all he saw was the gaping wound of betrayal and fear he had caused. I was a different person, he began, his voice strained. I'm not that man anymore. Noah's small frame appeared at the doorway, gripping a stuffed animal as a shield. Dad, are we still going to the park? It was a question intended for reassurance, one that ignited a flicker of hope. Jake knelt before his son, trying to mask the turmoil that roared inside him. He didn't want to destroy that innocent smile. Not today, buddy. We need to talk. The stringent air in the room thickened again. Noah looked to Sarah, searching for a sign of what to do. Is it because of that thing? Jake swallowed hard. Yes, Noah, it is. But let me explain. I made choices back then. Choices that hurt people, and I've been trying to be better for you both. Yet, with every honest word, he felt the weight of his past crashing down harder. Each confession laid bare felt like peeling away a layer of his skin. As Jake amassed the courage to share, something shifted within him. He wasn't just reliving the darkness, he was fighting against it. Outside, whispers spread like wildfire. Neighbors gathered, exchanging concerned glances, their loyalty shifting like sand in water. Among them, Mark, the dog trainer, watched with a mix of disbelief and pity. The police dog, Max, stayed by his side, as if understanding the gravity of the moment. Are you going to tell the truth? Mark confronted, stepping forward. You owe it to your family. Jake met his stare. This was the moment, the choice to face the consequences or retreat back into the shadows. You don't know what I've been through, he snapped, but even as the words left his mouth, he felt the sense of lost control that had defined his life for so long. So tell me. Mark insisted. You went to war to protect us. Now fight for your family. You can't just hide forever. It resonated, a bell chiming in the fog of confusion. Jake stood tall, feeling an unseen strength pressing into him from all angles. This was not just about his past, it was about the legacy he wanted to build. Okay, he whispered to himself, feeling the ground beneath him shift. I'll break the silence. As he turned back to Sarah and the children, their faces flickered with cautious hope, a reflection of the hope he so desperately clung to himself. He knew it wouldn't erase the pain, but maybe, just maybe, it could be the first step toward a new beginning. But just as he was ready to speak, the door burst open. The crowd of neighbors had come, drawn by a mix of curiosity and anger. Their expressions told Jake everything. The battle was far from over. Jake! A voice called from the throng. We need to talk. With his heart pounding and his self-truth on the brink of revelation, Jake realized this wasn't just the end of silence but the start of a reckoning that would change everything. Would he have the courage to make it through? The crowd pressed in like a tidal wave, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. Jake's pulse quickened as he scanned their faces, some familiar, others not. Anger flickered in their eyes, but underneath, there was a thin veil of curiosity. They wanted answers. They wanted the truth. And more than anything, they wanted to be reassured that their lives wouldn't be turned upside down by the fallout of his past. Jake! Mark called again, his voice commanding but stressed. You can't just stand there. You owe us this. Noah squeezed Jake's hand, his little fingers clinging tightly, seeking comfort in uncertain times. Sarah's gaze flickered between the crowd and her husband, processing the gravity of the moment. Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. This was his chance, not just for his redemption but for a chance to salvage his family. Clearing his throat, he stepped toward the doorway where the neighbors gathered. "I know you're angry," he started, his voice steadying with each word. "I know that I've let you down. But I need you to hear me out." A murmur rippled through the crowd, more questioning glances exchanged than warm affirmations. "Just spit it out," a woman shouted from the back. "We deserve to know." Jake felt a pang of panic, but he squared his shoulders. 15 years ago, I made choices that hurt a lot of people, including my family." The words felt heavy and awkward, but he pressed on. "I didn't always handle my anger well. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong." Sarah's eyes widened, a mixture of hurt and understanding swirling within them. Jake was determined to fight for her, to fight for Noah, even if the path to redemption seemed steep. "Jake," Mark interrupted, his tone softening just a bit, "we can't pretend this didn't happen." He gestured toward the crowd. "You need to be honest. What did you do?" Jake hesitated. Those moments replayed in his mind, tinged with regret. "I hurt people I loved. I destroyed trust. I pushed my family away and hid behind a mask of bravery, thinking that I could just escape." His voice cracked, emotion bleeding through the cracks of his earlier bravado. Noah looked up at him, confusion etched on his small face. "Dad, were you really hurting people?" Jake knelt beside his son, his heart shattering at the fear he saw there. "No, buddy. I promise you that I've worked hard to change. I was young, lost. I didn't understand what real strength meant." The crowd grew silent, wrapped in the revelation. Jake felt a glimmer of hope, maybe this was the beginning of a true understanding. He caught Sarah's eyes, seeking her support. "I know I can't change the past," he continued, his throat tight. "But I can fight for my present. For my family. I am not that man anymore." A soft voice broke through the quiet. "But how do we know you're not just lying to get out of this?" someone asked, the skepticism hanging like a cloud. Jake clenched his fists, determination fueling him. "You'll have to see me work. I will show my commitment." It was a promise, not just to them but to himself. As he rose, he caught Mark's eye, their shared history through service creating an unexpected bond. Mark nodded, almost imperceptibly, but it gave Jake the encouragement to believe he could rebuild even with lost trust. But just as Jake prepared to say more, a loud gasp rippled through the onlookers as someone appeared at the edge of the crowd. With a hurried step, his old friend Keith pushed through, his expression serious, the weight of secrecy hanging around him. "Jake," he panted, urgency lacing his words, "you need to listen to me. There's something you don't know about your past." It felt like the ground shifted beneath Jake's feet once more. What now? What more could there be? The reckoning was far from over, and a new twist awaited. Would he be able to face it? Jake's heart raced as he stared at Keith, the frantic look on his friend's face piercing through the chaotic noise of the crowd. "What do you mean, something I don't know?" The air felt charged, heavy with impending revelation. It was the last thing he needed, another layer to the already complex web of his past. Keith stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Not here. We should talk somewhere private." The urgency in his tone was palpable, and the crowd's murmurs faded into distant white noise. Jake's mind raced. What could there possibly be left to uncover? He glanced down at Noah, still gripping his hand, and then at Sarah. They were both a lifeline in this turmoil, yet the gnawing fear of history repeating itself clawed at his insides. "Okay," Jake finally replied, more to himself than anyone else. He turned back to the crowd, facing the sea of expectant eyes. "I'll be right back. Please, just give me a moment." He could feel the questions, the doubts lingering behind him, but he forced himself to breathe. Following Keith, he stepped away from the crowd, into the comforting anonymity of the alley next to their house. The cramped space felt like a cocoon, shielding them from prying eyes and whispering tongues. "What is going on?" Jake pressed, crossing his arms. Keith leaned against the cool brick wall, his breath coming in short bursts. "It's about your father, and that night." Jake's stomach dropped. He had spent years trying to distance himself from the shadow of his past, and now it was rearing its head again. "My father? What does he have to do with this?" The police dog gunner he found something when they went looking for evidence in the old case. Keith hesitated, gauging Jake's reaction. "A weapon, Jake. A handgun buried in the woods, linked to the violence that drove you away all those years ago." Anger bubbled up inside of Jake. He thought of all the nights he spent losing sleep over the fear that the mistakes of his past would resurface. "Why are you telling me this now? I thought we were done with this." "Because, Jake, it gets worse. They found out your father had connections to people involved in some serious things that might have involved you, too." Keith's voice trembled with the weight of his words. "I know it sounds crazy, but they think you might have a bigger story than you realize. It wasn't just your mistakes, there might have been orchestrations behind your family's fall." Jake's vision blurred for a moment. He struggled with the implications of Keith's revelation. If all this was true, what would it mean for his fight for redemption? Everything he had built up, his family, the community's trust, could it all come crashing down again? Why didn't anyone say anything before? He asked, his voice coming out low and full of anger. Fear. No one wanted to dig too deep. They were scared of what they'd uncover, scared of the truth. The regret painted across Keith's face set Jake on fire. "But I have to tell them. They need to know." "Not yet," Keith urged, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "You need to know what this means. Take time. Make sure your family is safe, because this can turn dangerous." The weight of his friend's words bore down on him, each syllable like a stone. Jake felt helplessness creep in, mixing with a flicker of determination. They were making the same mistakes before, wading deeper into darkness disguised as truth. As they stepped back into the light, Jake would need to decide how to handle this. Could he still attain redemption while confronting ghosts? Would this knowledge fracture the bond he was trying to mend with Sarah and Noah, or could it somehow lead to a stronger connection? He turned just in time to find Sarah's questioning gaze searching for reassurance. What would he tell her? What would he reveal next? The storm inside him roared with urgency. His heart raced, not just with fear, but with the adrenaline of facing the past, a past that could destroy everything or set him free. Little did he know, the reckoning had only just begun. Jake stepped out of the alley, the sun hitting him like a jolt of energy, but nothing could fully shake the weight of what had just unfolded. Sarah stood there, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. Noah was still clasping his hand, unaware of the storm swirling just beneath his father's calm exterior. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, her voice soft but laced with worry. Jake forced a smile, but it felt brittle. "Just a bit of a discussion, but I'm fine." He hoped the facade would hold, at least for now. As they walked back towards the gathering, the murmur of the crowd faded in and out of his focus. All he could think about was how Keith's revelation lingered like a dark cloud in his mind. The air felt thick. He could hear bits of laughter and chatter around him, but they seemed distant and unwelcoming. Jake's heart beat in rhythm with a knot of dread as he braced himself to face the growing number of familiar faces, each one representing a part of his life that felt precarious at best. "Jake?" Sarah's voice broke through his fog. "Are you sure you're okay?" He nodded, but inside he felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap. The last thing he wanted was for her to sense his turmoil. He had fought too hard to create a sense of normalcy, a life without the shadows of his father's past hanging over him. Let us just enjoy the moment, he replied, trying to inject genuine enthusiasm into his voice. The kids are having fun, and that's what matters. Sarah's brow furrowed slightly. She didn't let it go. You're hiding something, Jake. Her words struck him like a slap. He had been trying to protect her from the weight of his past. But how could he keep it buried? The truth had a way of clawing to the surface, and now, it felt like it would burst forth at any minute. Just days before, they had finally started to scrape together a sense of family after years of disruption. He couldn't let fear unravel that. It's complicated, Jake finally admitted, glancing down at Noah, who was obliviously busy with his friends, laughter spilling into the air around them. Complicated how? You know you can tell me anything. Jake took a deep breath. He felt the wall he'd built between them starting to slip. It's just some things came up about my dad. Things I didn't know before. Her face softened, but there was an edge to it that mirrored his apprehension. What kind of things? He hesitated, wrestling with the thought of revealing even a fraction of what Keith had shared. It's not clear yet. I just need some time to unpack it. The apprehension seeping into his voice made him feel weak. I get that. Just don't shut me out, okay? He held her gaze, and the concern in her eyes cut through him. She deserved the truth, yet he questioned if he could bear to share it. Promise, he uttered, already mentally prepared to break that promise if more chaos came tumbling out. As they rejoined the crowd, a different kind of tension began to weave itself through the air. Laughter echoed around them, yet Jake felt the impending cloud of uncertainty closing in. All the while, the thought of his father's past lurked in the shadows of his mind, what it would reveal, what it could destroy. Suddenly, a shout went up from the kids, capturing everyone's attention. Jake turned to see a woman stepping forward, a look of urgency on her face. Excuse me. Is there a Jake Morrison here? His name echoed against the backdrop of laughter, pulling everyone's focus toward him, and in an instant, he felt the eyes of the night closing in. Jake's heart raced anew as dread tightened around him. What now? He thought, bracing himself for whatever was about to unfold. Secrets dragging themselves to the surface had a way of rewriting destinies. The reckoning of his past was closing in faster than he could prepare, and he feared he was standing at the edge of something he might not be able to escape. Jake felt the weight of that moment deepen as the crowd hushed, all eyes now on him. The woman's voice had sliced through the merriment like a knife. He could sense the collective curiosity stirring among the gathered parents and children, a blending of anticipation and unease. Family gatherings were supposed to be carefree, not about reckoning with shadows. Is that you? The woman pressed, scanning the crowd, her anxious expression crumpling the air around her. Yes, that's me, Jake replied, unsure of what was to come. A knot tightened in his stomach. Had something happened? Had his father resurfaced in some way? He took a step forward, the noise of laughter now replaced by a suffocating silence. The woman moved closer and spoke in a hushed tone, but her urgency couldn't be masked. I need to talk to you about your father. There are things you need to know. Now? He paused, glancing at Sarah, whose worry had morphed into an expression of true concern. Noah, sensing something was off, stopped playing and turned to look at his dad, confusion on his young face. Yes. It's important. Her eyes darted around, as if searching for eavesdroppers in the crowd. Can we step aside? Jake's mind raced. He felt paralyzed, as if the ground beneath him was shifting. No, not now, not here. He had worked so hard to protect his family from this very reality. With every second that passed, the pressure in his chest grew heavier. Sarah squeezed his hand, grounding him. You don't have to do this right now, Jake. We can go home. But the fire in his gut wouldn't let him walk away. He needed to face this, whatever this was. Let us talk, he said finally, nodding toward a quiet side lane, away from the curious stares. As they stepped out of earshot, the clamor of the festivities faded, replaced by the hum of his racing thoughts. With each step, he braced for the revelation that could splinter everything he knew. The woman drew in a breath, eyes wide with a mix of determination and dread. "I'm a detective," she began, revealing a badge at her hip. "We found some things related to your father. Evidence that could change everything." At the word evidence, Jake's heart thudded heavily against his ribs. Everything he had tried to bury surged back. "What do you mean?" "About his past. It's more than just rumors. We've got records of abuse violence he was involved in. You deserve to know what he truly is." The world around Jake blurred momentarily. His father's legacy, one he had hoped to cleanse from his life, was now crashing back like a wave. "Why now?" he asked, voice trembling. "Why tell me this now?" "I didn't want to come here and disrupt your life today," she admitted. "But there's been a new lead, and I couldn't ignore it. We think you might be in danger, too." Danger. The word echoed ominously in his mind, filling every crevice with a potent fear. He thought of Sarah and Noah, the family he was desperately trying to protect. What had he unknowingly walked into? Danger from what? He asked, his voice low, edged with urgency. "From people associated with your father," she explained. "People who don't want the truth to come out." Jake staggered backward as the implications settled in. He thought of the life he had built, the fragile connections that were now at risk. Who could he trust? And in a heartbeat, he realized, his attempt to protect his family from his father's darkness might lead him straight into it. He needed answers. He needed to make a choice. But as dread knotted itself tighter in his chest, he understood that the truth was a double-edged sword, a pathway that could either save him or consume everything he loved. The question whispered through his mind like a haunting melody: was he willing to face a past that had long shadowed his life? Just then, an urgent shout from the crowd shattered his thoughts, pulling him back towards the light. "Jake! You need to come quickly." His heart sank further. Whatever came next could either sever his ties to his father or pull him back into the very darkness he had tried to escape. With the detective's eyes watching him intently, he took a deep breath, wrestled with the urgency that gripped him, and stepped back into the fray. What awaited him could alter everything or begin a fight he wasn't ready for. Jake stepped back into the bustle, his heart still thumping wildly against his chest. The laughter, once a warm embrace, now felt cold and distant. It was as if he had entered a different world, one where laughter masked secrets and joy teetered on the brink of revelation. "Jake!" A familiar voice cut through his daze. It was Sarah, rushing toward him, her brow knitted with worry. "What happened? Who was that woman?" "It's complicated," he replied, unable to mask the fear in his voice. He looked around, noticing Noah had wandered a few feet away, playing with a group of kids. The innocence of his son struck him hard, a stark contrast to the darkness looming over him. "Jake," Sarah said again, a touch of urgency threaded into her tone. "You look pale. What did she want?" "She said she found something about my father," he confessed, the words tumbling out like stones from a crumbling wall. "And that people might be after us because of it." "What do you mean, after us?" Her voice was laced with disbelief. "I don't know, Sarah." The frustration boiled within him. "I'm just trying to protect our family, and it feels like everything is slipping away." The laughter from nearby families wove into his ramblings, almost mocking him. He turned, catching Noah mid-laughter, his face lighting up with sheer joy. It was both a comfort and a tormenting reminder of what was at stake. "Let us get out of here," Sarah urged, eyeing the crowd uneasily, as if sensing hidden threats in the faces surrounding them. "We can talk at home." "Yeah," he agreed, but something in his gut twisted. It felt wrong to just abandon the conversation, yet he couldn't spotlight his son to potential danger. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. As they made their way back, Jake's thoughts spiraled. Images of his father flashed in his mind, the stern face, the anger, the reasons he had wished to leave that life behind. He had buried it, but now it rotated in his mind like a haunting specter. What if he's involved with something bigger? Sarah's question pierced through his thoughts. What if we're caught in the aftermath of whatever he did? I can't let that happen, Jake said vehemently, a lump forming in his throat. I won't let our lives be dictated by someone who doesn't deserve to be part of it. Noah skipped ahead, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing behind him. Jake felt a pang in his heart. They were supposed to be leading a life far removed from those shadows. Let us make a plan, Sarah urged, pulling him from his spirals of regret and fear. We need to be together. If there's a real threat, we should take precautions. I know, he replied, feeling the heaviness settle into his bones. But I need to face whatever this is too. I can't run from my past. I have to confront it, and if that means protecting you and Noah along the way, then that's what I'll do. Sarah nodded slowly, the worry etched deeper in her features. Just promise me you'll be careful. We can face this together, but you have to let me in. You're not alone in this. As they reached their car, the anxiety loomed larger than the vehicle itself. Jake still felt the detective's eyes on him, her warning echoing, "You might be in danger." Just before Jake opened the car door, a sharp cry rang out from nearby. No! Don't go there. It was a child's voice, mixed with frantic shouting. The foreground shifted, faces around him becoming shadowy silhouettes against the chaos that began to unravel. Jake! Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide with alarm, as the sounds of a scuffle erupted. He turned to find a small gathering forming where Noah had been playing. An icy fear gripped him as he stepped forward. Noah. There among the throngs of people, pushing and pulling, his heart raced, warning bells sounding in his mind. What if this wasn't just a coincidence? With a surge of adrenaline and purpose, Jake plunged into the crowd. This time, there would be no turning back. What lay ahead of him could illuminate a path of truth or deeper ties to the darkness he'd worked so hard to shed. Jake pushed through the throng. He could barely breathe, desperation clawing at his throat. Voices buzzed around him, but all he could hear was the pounding of his heart and the panic in Sarah's voice when she shouted his name. He scanned the faces, his eyes landing on a tangle of limbs at the center of the crowd. Noah! He called again, his voice raw, rising above the din. He squeezed past a cluster of startled parents, forcing his way to the front. His mind raced with thoughts of what could be happening. Was someone hurting his son? As he broke into the clearing, he spotted Noah, his little body grappling in the grip of another child. The other boy, older and bigger, held Noah by the collar of his shirt, face contorted into a snarl, clearly frustrated. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Let him go! Jake shouted, startling everyone, including Noah. The older boy paused, his grip loosening just enough for Noah to slip free. Stumbling into the safety of his father's arms, Jake scooped Noah up, relief flooding through him like a tide. You okay? He asked, holding his son tightly, shielding him from the chaos. Noah nodded, wide-eyed but unharmed. The older boy lashed out, he was in my way. He sounded like an echo of the violence Jake feared was slowly revealing itself. Jake's heart sank. Was this just a childish squabble, or the damage of a line of terror that spiraled deeper than he imagined? Do you need to speak to the police? A concerned mother approached, her eyes flickering with alarm. No. Jake shook his head sharply, feeling the eyes of the crowd upon him. He didn't want to draw more attention to the scene. He needed to contain this, for Noah's sake. Let us just go, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, glancing at Sarah, who moved closer to them, her face pale with worry. As the crowd began to disperse, Jake led them away from the park. He needed to put distance between them and whatever darkness lingered, even within the innocent play of children. Noah pressed against him, looking up with those bright, trusting eyes that shattered Jake's heart. What happened, Dad? Noah asked, his small voice quivering slightly. Jake knelt down, meeting his son's gaze. Just some kids playing rough. Nothing to worry about, okay? Okay, Noah replied timidly, not fully convinced but willing to trust his father. As they reached the car, Sarah remained silent, deep in thought. Jake could see the weight of everything that had just transpired hanging heavily on her. Jake, that wasn't just a kid fight, she said finally, her voice low. Do you think? I don't know, he interrupted, trying to control the anxiety bubbling inside him. But we need to talk about what that woman said, too. She might opened a door we can't close again. Let us get home first, she urged, gently placing a hand on his arm, grounding him for a moment. But even as they climbed into the car, the turbulence inside Jake churned more violently. Jake started the engine, glancing in the rearview mirror at the park they were leaving behind, a place that had always been filled with joy, laughter, and peace. Now it felt tainted, a lingering reminder that shadows were creeping back into his life. As they drove in silence, he felt the tension between them. Each heartbeat echoed a question, why now? What was stirring beneath the surface? The walls of his seemingly normal life were starting to crack, and he couldn't help but wonder just how deep those roots went. Arriving home, the familiar sight of their cozy house surprisingly felt like a fortress against the unknown. But the feeling of safety quickly dissipated as Jake stepped inside, his thoughts racing. The path ahead seemed fraught with danger, revelations waiting to spill over. We need to figure this out, he said finally, resolute. We need answers before anyone else gets hurt. Just as he spoke, his phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the tense atmosphere. They all turned sharply as the screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. Jake's pulse quickened. Was it a sign, or the start of something even more perilous? He hesitated for a moment, dread pooling in his stomach. Should he answer? Jake felt the weight of the moment, that pulse of tension crackling in the air like an electric current. He kept staring at the phone, his mind a whirlwind of possibilities. What if it was the police? What if it was someone from the park? He swallowed hard, fighting against that tightness in his throat. Noah shifted in his seat, sensing his father's unease. Dad, who is it? His innocent question felt like a tiny thread tugging at Jake's heart. He glanced down at his son, those bright eyes filled with trust, and the urge to shield him from harm tightened Jake's grip on the phone. It's just a call I'm not sure about, he said, forcing a smile that felt brittle on his lips. Why don't you go play in your room for a bit? Okay, Noah replied, but there was hesitation in his voice. He looked between Jake and Sarah, searching for reassurance. Just for a few minutes, Sarah added gently, prompting Noah to nod and meander down the hall, his small footsteps echoing softly in the tense silence. Jake's hand trembled as he finally swiped to answer. Hello? The voice on the other end was gravelly, fragmented. Mr. Sanders? My name is Officer Fisher. There's something you need to know. The breath Jake had been holding rushed out of him. There was an urgency in the officer's tone that instantly set alarm bells ringing in Jake's head. What is it? Is it Noah? Your son is fine, but we need you to come down to the station, Officer Fisher continued. There's been a report and we think it involves you. Stomach twisting, Jake cut the officer off. What do you mean, what kind of report? It felt like the floor had dropped out beneath him, and panic surged. Someone identified you in connection with a prior incident. We believe it may be related to what happened at the park today. Jake's chest tightened. Cold realization crept in, knotting in the pit of his stomach. What are you talking about? I've done nothing wrong. Sir, please. You need to listen, the officer tried to soothe him, but Jake could hardly hear it, his heart drumming louder with each word. Why now? He blurted, feeling Sarah's eyes on him, the worry radiating from her like heat. Alone, he might have crumpled under that panic, but her presence anchored him. Because we discovered new information regarding unresolved cases filed years ago. We suspect a connection to recent assaults. His breath quickened. The past murky, whispered secrets that he thought were buried was clawing its way back, unearthing fears he thought he had controlled. I don't know what you're talking about, he lied, the words heavy and bitter on his tongue. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. We just need you to come in, Officer Fisher insisted. For the sake of your family. The line clicked dead just as Jake hung up. Every fiber of his being screamed to protect Noah, to shield him from whatever darkness was creeping into their lives. What is it? Sarah stepped closer, her eyes narrowing, searching for the truth in Jake's expression. They want me at the station, Jake murmured, the weight of the words like lead in his mouth. It's south about the park and old cases. They think I'm linked to something. The panic in Sarah's eyes flared, her shock kissing the air between them before she steadied herself. We need to go. Now. Jake nodded, knowing they had to confront whatever lay ahead. But in the back of his mind, a different question lingered, gnawing at him like a weary conscience. Had he been living a truth of his own making, or had something far more sinister always lurked in the shadows? As they darted toward the door, the echo of Noah's laughter drifted back to them, a stark contrast to the chaos that awaited. A stark reminder of what they both had to protect. Could he face what was waiting for him? Was there a past he had yet to reckon with before it all unraveled? The engine roared to life outside, but as the shadows lengthened behind them, Jake realized that this journey was just the beginning. The real question loomed large: what secrets would they uncover? Jake Miller stood on the front porch, anxiety wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to loom over his every thought. The memories of the past surged, as if they had gathered strength while he'd been focused on the promise of a new future. Today was supposed to be about breaking free, about facing the truth once and for all, but instead, he found himself staring into the abyss of what had once haunted him. He turned toward Sarah, who stood a few steps behind him, her face a canvas of confusion and worry. We need to talk before we go to the station, Jake said, his heart pounding. He saw the flicker of concern in her eyes, the quiet understanding that lay beneath the surface of her unease. About what? Sarah asked, her voice steady but threaded with concern. All of it, Sarah. The past, my father, everything. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words hanging there in the crisp evening air. I can't let this pull us apart. I need to be honest with you. Sarah nodded but didn't take a step closer. Okay, I'm listening. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the tension crawl up his spine. My father's legacy, it's worse than I thought. Despite everything I've done, there are people connections that I can't just sever. Those shadows, they might just find their way back to haunt us. The admission hung heavy between them. Do you think they'll come after us? Her voice tightened, fear evident. I don't know, but we need to be ready. I can't let history repeat itself. His resolve hardened like iron, and something shifted inside him. Noah, Sarah whispered, pain flooding her face. He's still so young. He shouldn't have to live in fear like we did. With a sudden burst of determination, Jake turned to her. No. He won. We're going to keep him safe. This is our moment to reclaim our lives. He took her hands in his, trying to convey the strength he felt surging through him. The determination to fight, to protect his family, was growing louder than the fears that had plagued him for years. Okay, she whispered back, her eyes flickering with newfound hope. What now? First things first, we need to change the narrative. We need to confront whatever truth unfolds at the station with courage together. He felt a sense of clarity, of purpose, in that moment. It was time to stop letting fear dictate their actions. It was time to own their story. They climbed into the car, tension riding high as they drove together, but there was also a current of unity binding them closer. Suddenly, Jake could see the road ahead as a bridge, not a fracture but a pathway leading to safety. He was still weighed down by the looming questions about his father's actions and those shadows he thought were behind him, but he wasn't walking into that storm alone. Arriving at the station where the fluorescent lights were harsh against the fading daylight, Jake felt his heart thumping against his chest as they stepped inside. He and Sarah strode forward together, two warriors prepared for a battle. As they approached the reception desk, Officer Fisher met them with an expression that was grave yet oddly compassionate. "Thank you for coming in, Mr. Miller," he greeted, gesturing for them to sit. "Just tell me what I'm facing," Jake demanded, the emotion thick in his throat. "There have been reports links between your father's past and recent incidents in town, including the altercation at the park." The officer paused, gauging Jake's reaction. "We need you to help us piece this together." Jake clenched his fists in his lap. He's been gone for years. Why now? What am I supposed to do about it? Officer Fisher looked him straight in the eye. "You're not your father, Jake. This is an opportunity, a chance to break the cycle. But you have to be honest." Those words struck a chord deep inside him. It wasn't just about him anymore, it was about Noah, about their future as a family. "I'm ready. I want to do what's right, not just for myself but for my family." With Sarah's hand resting gently on his, Jake realized that in that moment, against the storm of his past, he had found a resolve he never knew he'd need. It was a choice, one that redefined not just his future, but the future of the love he had fought to protect. As the officer explained the details, Jake felt a calm settle over him, like the quiet after a storm. They would face this together, ready to confront the truth that had haunted them for years. This was his fight, but not a fight alone. Leaving the station hours later, Jake stepped out into the cool night air, a weight lifting gradually off his shoulders. Laughter erupted nearby, children playing as he noticed Noah with a few neighbors. A sense of relief washed over him. This was what mattered. They were moving forward, ready to embrace a new chapter, strong and united, no matter what the future held. "Dad, was it scary?" Noah asked, rushing up to him. "No, buddy," Jake smiled, feeling the warmth of family envelop him. Today was a step. A step toward something better. As they walked home, hand in hand, Jake felt a surge of hope. They were leaving the shadows behind, stepping into the light of a new dawn. Together, they were crafting a legacy of love, strength, and truth, one that would carry them through whatever lay ahead. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Only true fans understand how important this is.